William Burke and his buddy William Hare made quite a name for themselves in Edinburgh, Scotland, as notorious killers. In 1828, they were believed to be responsible for the deaths of at least 16 people. Their gruesome tale has inspired all sorts of art books, plays, movies, songs, and poems, where facts often take the backseat to the chilling stories surrounding them. The setting of Edinburgh adds a lot to their story. Picture mass poverty and crime. The sewers stink, earning the city the nickname Auld Reekie. Gothic buildings loom over cobbled streets in the old town, painting a dark picture. This gritty backdrop only heightens the drama of their infamous legacy. So let's travel back to 1828 Scotland and unravel this story a little bit. Now, before we dive into the grisly details, it's important to understand the world at this point in time. While science was progressing, modern interventions such as antibiotics and anesthesia did not yet exist. Before anesthesia came around in 1846, people faced surgery in a pretty harsh way. They either swallowed alcohol, took opioids, or bit down on leather. Sounds fun, right? But back to our story. Doctors had a problem. To master their craft, they needed to study the human body. This meant they required real bodies for training. New laws allowed the remains of orphans and the poor to be used for this purpose. Doctors were willing to pay quite a sum to get their hands on these bodies. But finding corpses was no easy task. This led to a rise in body snatching. Under the cover of night, thieves would sneak into graveyards and dig up the recently buried. To fight this, more safes were created. These were heavy, jail-like structures that kept graves secure and deterred would-be thieves. William Burke was living in Ireland with his family. Things had taken a turn when he got into a heated argument with his father-in-law over some land. Instead of patching things up, William packed his bags and headed to Edinburgh. He was going to work on the Union Canal. He left his wife and kids behind and never looked back. Yes, just like that. Even though he left his family behind, he was quite popular in Edinburgh. People described him as charming, friendly, and funny, which is not uncommon for a lot of serial killers. He got along well with everyone. Later on, he remarried. This time, it was with a woman named Helen McDougall, and they made their home in Edinburgh together. William Hare tried out several professions before becoming the keeper of a lodging house on Westport Street with his wife Margaret. Now, in a meeting planned by the devil, it seems, William Burke and William Hare crossed paths just outside Edinburgh. They were both Irish and about the same age, which made them pretty quick buddies. Eventually, William Burke and his wife Helen moved into the lodging house run by William Hare and his wife Margaret. On November 29, 1827, a man named Old Donald, who had been living at William Hare's boarding house, died. At the time, he still owed £4 in rent, and William was determined to get his money. Furious, he called up his mate Burke. Together they hatched a plan: steal the dead man's body from its coffin, and to cover their tracks, they stuffed the coffin with some bark to hide the fact that the body was gone. They then sold the corpse to Dr. Robert Knox's Anatomy School for either 8 or 10 shillings, which is about 800 to 1,000 American dollars. It didn't take long for them to see that dealing in bodies could make them some serious cash, but finding these bodies wasn't simple, so they chose the dark path of murder. Seems reasonable, right? They thought so. They'd trick unsuspecting people into their lodging house. Once inside, they'd serve them drinks, masking their true intentions. Then they would smother the victims. Dr. Robert Knox took notice of the bodies, and he seemed impressed by their condition. He was quite pleased with the deals he was making with them. Did he suspect the gruesome truth? Maybe, but he chose to ignore it. In early 1828, a boarder named Joseph got sick while staying with Burke and Hare. Instead of waiting to see if he would recover, they hatched a chilling plan. They fed him whiskey until he was too drunk to resist. Then they smothered him to ensure no signs of harm showed. This method later became known as burking. In an alleged confession from 1829, William Burke gave a detailed account of how he and Hare went about killing their victims. It was as gruesome as it gets. Burke held nothing back, sharing the cold, harsh steps they took. He seemed almost proud of it. This is what he said. By suffocation, we made the persons drunk, then suffocated them by holding the nostrils and mouth and getting on the body. Sometimes I held the mouth and nose while Hare went on the body, and sometimes Hare held the mouth and nose while I placed myself on the body. For almost a year, Burke and Hare embarked on a macabre spree, taking the lives of at least 16 individuals, often sex workers or transient wanderers, folks they thought wouldn't be missed. Fueled by cash and a twisted thrill, these two had no qualms about who their next victim was. They even turned on people close to them, like Burke's own relative, an elderly woman and her grandson, not to mention a well-known street performer called Daft Jamie. Each act was a ruthless act, a chance to profit without a second thought to the consequences, to them or the victims. The National Galleries, Scotland, shares an interesting tidbit. Daft Jamie's actual name was James Wilson, and he had a special talent. He could figure out the day of the week for any date in history. I guess they didn't have Google then, huh? In his confessions, William Burke claimed that Jamie was killed in Hare's boarding house in 1828, and William Hare were on a roll, selling bodies for cash until October 31st, 1828, changed everything. Halloween. On that day, Marjorie Campbell Docherty, also known as Margaret or Maggie, traveled from Glasgow to Edinburgh looking for her son. During her search, she bumped into William Burke. He offered her a place to stay and a meal, and she took him up on the offer. At that time, William Burke and his accomplice, Helen McDougall, had two lodgers, James and Anne Gray. William Burke sent the Grays over to the Hares' place for the night, claiming it would be easier for them. When they returned the next day, William Burke told them to avoid a spare room where some of their stuff was kept. But curiosity got the better of them. They sneaked into the room and discovered Marjorie's lifeless body hidden under some straw. Helen McDougall tried to silence the Grays with a bribe of £10, but the scared couple had other ideas. They went straight to the police. The authorities raced to the boarding house, but by the time they got there, William Burke and William Hare had already taken the body away. This left investigators without any hard evidence, so they decided to play their cards. They got William Hare to turn on his buddy, hoping to build a case against the pair. In November 1828, the police took in William Burke, William Hare, Margaret Lard, and Helen McDougall on murder charges. The problem was there was no solid evidence linking them to the crime scenes. Prosecutors were worried they couldn't get a conviction. It's unclear how much the wives knew about what was going on with the men. With no strong case, Lord Advocate Sir William Ray made a deal with William Hare. He offered immunity for William Hare and his wife if they testified against William Burke and Helen McDougall. William Hare jumped at the chance and spilled the beans on the murders that he and his friend William Burke had committed together. Their trial kicked off Christmas Eve, 1828, and in the end, Helen McDougall walked free, but William Burke wasn't so lucky. He faced a murder conviction. Helen McDougall, Margaret, and William Hare left town in a hurry and slipping away from the history books forever. Lucky for them. Dr. Robert Knox dodged charges when Burke claimed the surgeon didn't know he was buying bodies from murder victims. However, Dr. Knox's reputation took a serious hit, forcing him to exit Edinburgh and head for London to try to restore his name. Meanwhile, William Burke faced a different fate. He was hanged on January 5th, 1829, in front of a crowd of about 25,000 people. Ironically, his body was given to an anatomy school. Medical students even took pieces of his skin as keepsakes. Some even made book covers. Today, his skeleton remains on display at Surgeons' Hall in Edinburgh, a grim reminder of the impact he had on the city's dark history. And the irony can't be missed. Today, you can still visit a couple of the gruesome locations if you happen to be in the area. Places you can visit associated with Burke and Hare are West Bow Street, where Burke and Hare lived, or the Lawn Market, where Burke was executed. Thanks for watching till the end. I really appreciate the support. I enjoy making these videos for you. So until next time, never take free offers from strangers. Nothing is free. And thank you for watching The Fallen Files.